Hey, what's up everybody, Ghost Gamer here, and today in this video, this CryEngine tutorial video, we're going to be covering terrain. Let me take those headphones off real quick. But we're going to be covering terrain, specifically in this video we're going to be covering the actual height map creation, so on and so forth, and hopefully if there's enough time in the day for me as far as recording goes, hopefully I will be also able to make the texturing of the terrain. It's going to be set up at 2 different videos, that way it's not long and drawn out, things like that. But basically, if you come into CryEngine and you come up here and click on this nice wonderful terrain button, which if you do not have it, it's under the terrain toolbar. And I'm sure there's also edit terrain here. Either way, whatever's most comfortable for you, you can access it many different ways, so on and so forth, all that good stuff. This is where you create your actual terrain. Whenever you open up CryEngine, obviously you have nothing but ocean on your entire map. Now, at the setting that we actually, I can't remember if it's just the setting that we used in the previous video, the actual map setting, or if it is basically the same across the board. The height of the water is basically 16 units. And the easiest way I could knock that out right here, make a fairly decent sized brush. Yeah, we'll move that out of the way. Oh, don't do, damn it. Here you see 16 units. Hopefully this, oh shit. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. Basically it's 16 units. I don't know how well Camtasia is actually recording this or not. But you basically see how the ocean... Oh, that's a funky glitch. Sorry, I was distracted by my flashlight and suppressor. But basically at 16 units you'll see where the water is basically just breaking over the terrain, where it's kind of like this whole fake walking on water type deal here. So that's at 16 units. Now granted, like I said, I can't remember if that's across the board or if it's just for, you know, the settings that I used, whatever. But let me erase that real quick, and we're gonna go zoom out a little bit, and we're gonna go over a lot of stuff in here. First off, you have of course your file, or your file bar, or your whatever the hell you want to call this. You also have like import, hold, fetch, clear, resize, invert, smooth, all this other good stuff on top here. You also have your brush, like your quick picks or whatever you want to call it for your brushes, and you have opacity here where you can just play with the settings, see kind of what they do. I'm not going to go seriously in depth with that. That's something that you gotta kind of have to play with and figure out on your own to an extent. And then you have the terrain bar over here. Now you have flatten, raise lower, smooth, and pick height. Typically what I'll do is I'll go in here with a flatten, figure out roughly, you know, what you gotta kind of have your overall layout of your map figured out in order to even go anywhere with this. Obviously if it's going to be a waterless environment, so it's not going to be out in the woods, no rivers, no streams, no lakes, no ocean, none of that, you can get away with jacking that height up to like say 100, or leaving it at 100 and then just basically coloring all of this in, which is simple. You know, you just come over here, do 100, pick a very large outside radius, jack up that inside radius, and then just Oh, wait. And jack up your hardness. Almost forgot that one. But you just basically come over and I think you could actually jack this up. Nope, wrong button. Nope, 200's the biggest you can have. Okay. You could just go through and level that out. I'm sure there's an easier way to do this, but I mean, typically, if this was the case, I'd probably just do it in Photoshop, which we'll get to that in a second. But you can level this bad boy out. And as you can see, it's one even terrain across the board. Which, yes, you could still see ocean, but that's outside your actual level, so you'd have to do some decent hiding, so your character can't get over there, so on and so forth. Which, considering how large, let me just be nice if I hit the right damn button. Give you an idea how large this map is. I mean, any given direction I cannot see ocean. Matter of fact, just at, damn it, will you stop that? Just at one speed you could see, hopefully you could see in this recording how fast the actual grid squares on the ground are moving. And I still haven't hit the edge yet. Again, this is something that you can kind of play with. Let me jack that up to 10 here. Now we're getting somewhere. You can see where the fall off is, and it's all the way over here. And now this is a very, 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 very large map. The likelihood of you having to rock out something this size is kind of slim. But anyhow, enough screwing around for me here. Excuse me. Let's go back into our terrain here. I'll just clear that out. But basically you can play with your inside and outside radius, your hardness and your height. Figure out, you know, what kind of elevation, what kind of deviation, you know, whether it's going to be a nice smooth rolling hill or if it's going to be jagged rocks, all that good stuff. You also have the ability to enable noise. That's most mainly if you're looking at like a real, like a real rocky terrain. Is typically when I would use something like that. So like, you know, the Rocky Mountain, well, you know, an area somewhat similar to like the Appalachian Mountains, the Rocky Mountains, all the way up to and including like an environment kind of like the Southwest, where it's just real rocky and jagged. That's where you would throw up some noise there. So I'll go ahead and give you another example here, and I'm not going to set, I'm just going to set that to 20, but I'm going to enable my noise. And that's another thing, you can actually paint on, you don't have to paint in the terrain editor. If you wish, you can actually paint inside the perspective view of your actual game window here. But as you see, I mean, it's generating a little bit of noise depending on your scale and your frequency, so you can change these sliders around and it'll literally, can't talk, just mess with your terrain a little bit. You can't see this, but all I'm doing is turning up my scale, and you can see how large it's getting. If I throw down my scale, this is right now my scale is only about a 9. See how it's gotten really, really flat. I mean, there's still some undulation in the terrain. It's not at all level. It's got a little bit of undulation in it. I believe that's the word. But it's got some variance, but it's not obscene like this section here was. So I actually start with that. And I'll go over a couple of the other things with you guys. First and foremost, I'm going to go over smooth. Now, again, let me move this out of the way. Basically what you're going to be, well, if you're using CryEngine, chances are you have experience with a 3D modeling program. At least my hope would be so, because you kind of need to know that knowledge in order to do anything really with CryEngine, well, any gaming engine for that matter. But you should already understand the principles behind a smooth tool. But for those of you who really don't, I'm just setting a couple settings. Setting the outside radius to 8. Yeah, it's a good size. And my hardness to 0.4. And all it's doing is smoothing out my data here. It's a good time, or a good tool to use if you have terrain that you started off with. You know, you kind of want it rocky, but it's maybe a little too rocky, or you have a transition piece, so on and so forth. Whether it be a transitioning into water or transitioning into a mountain range or what have you. Smooth tool comes into play, comes to help you out a little bit. Aside from that, you also have raise and lower, which honestly I don't really use raise lower very often. Typically it's kind of one of those things that I don't know. It's usually I have a game or a set game plan of what I plan on doing with my map, or with the map, and I kind of do like I just did. I don't really raise lower per se. Usually I'll go through and just flatten with a noise setting, and that way it kind of gives some variance, but also gives me what I want, if you will. But what we'll do is we'll jack up the radius here a little bit. We'll leave the hardness about 0.2. You know what? We'll change it to 0.4. And height of 2. Gonna leave the noise off, but you can see we're basically, and that's one of the reasons, I'll explain that in a second, but that's one of the reasons why I don't really use it. If you click it once, it raises that area of your brush up, in this case 2 units. If you hold it and start moving, it'll continuously compound that by, say, 1 unit or 2 units, whatever you have that height set at. So this is one of those things that you have to keep in mind. Let's go to this flatter area, because it can get away from you rather quick. I mean, as you could see, I started off over in here. By the time I got to the end, it has, basically ramped up. I'd have to say rather linear as far as the progression went, because it's constantly saying, okay, +2, +2, +2, +2, or whatever you have the height map set at, or the height set at. So even if I change it to 1, and I do the same thing over here, I think I backed off a little. Damn it. Get a straight line here. It kind of does the same thing. It kind of progressively slopes. Again, it's all at what you want. It'll take a little bit of playing around, but this is just kind of an overview here. Again, you can enable noise, play with the noise settings, what have you. And finally, we have a pick height, which is essentially what it sounds like. So I'm going to, if I can find my mouse here, bring this back over here. This gives you the ability, it doesn't matter where you're at in the map. If you remember anything, you could always go to pick height, and it gives you an eyedropper just like Photoshop would. And you can actually pick in different areas, and it'll tell you roughly what that height is at that area that you picked with the eyedropper. That's what I've always used it for. If anybody has another reason, another use for it, by all means feel free to share. That's about all I've used it for. Real quick, what I'll do here is I'll erase this, and be helpful if I zoomed out here. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover importing a height map from like Photoshop real quick. Move this out of the way. Basically all I did here was I used the gradient tool, and I used a radial gradient, and I set it up from black to white. Whenever you're dealing with the height map here, it is essentially grayscale. Okay, there's no color involved with your height map. It's just nothing but, I don't want to say black and white, but it's nothing but grayscale. And as you can see here, we have something that starts off at pure black in the center and runs out to a light gray on the outside four corners. And what I did was, all I did was save that as a 24-bit bitmap or BMP file. So what I'll do is I'll come over here. You do file, import, or you could just click on this little folder here. It says import. Click on my BMP file. And as you see, your black area, in this instance, let me back up here. The black area is actually the, black area as far as Photoshop goes, is the lowest point on the map. And I should have switched that to 10, but so you can see here, and which that was another thing that I actually found amusing, is there's a lot of noise involved with this bitmap. I'm not exactly quite sure why, but there is, so I'm just going to do a real quick smooth because it's bugging me. But as you'll see, you have the low center. Get closer to the ground so I don't fall on my face and die. You have a low center in the middle, where you have your water, and it basically bowls out just like a salad bowl or what have you would. And like I said, your black is going to be the lowest level, whereas your whites are going to be the highest level. So we'll say, for the sake of argument, let me change it to white. And you know what, actually, we'll do this right. My horrible mouse writing. Do save as, just replace that. I added an extra dot after the fact, but I don't care. Let me zoom out here. And I'm just, what the hell's going on? There we go. Clear this map out. Import a new height map. Now, as you can see, white is by far the tallest you can get. Not exactly sure what that value even is, but it's extremely tall. We're talking, skyscraper tall, obviously here, which actually is going to make me wonder about that. I'm going to have to look that up and post it in the comments. And but yes, before I hit rock bottom, white is extremely tall, black is, relatively deep, if you will. That is how you basically import a terrain file or a height map into CryEngine. That's how you basically set up your terrain. And that's going to be it for this video. I'm already at 20 minutes and I've rambled quite a bit. So I'm going to wrap that up here. Again, if you guys have any questions, concerns, comments, feel free to drop them in the comment box below. If I forgot something, or if I overlooked something or said something wrong, again, let me know in the comments. If you are one of those people out there, which I've noticed, not so much with these videos in particular, but there were a couple others, instead of just giving the video a thumbs down, why don't you leave me a comment, an actual, decent comment saying why you don't like it? It's kind of hard to improve videos when you don't know why somebody likes something. I mean, granted, yes, you could just say, hey, I don't like it, and that's fine. But it actually helps me out a lot more, know what you guys like, if you actually, hit the like or the unlike button. But if you if you hit the thumbs down button, keep it cool, keep it kosher, just throw a little thing in the comment box of why you didn't like it. It just helps me out in the end. But like I said, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, feel free to drop them in the comment box below. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe button, and definitely don't forget to subscribe to the page. But for now, that's all I have, and next video will be in texturing the terrain, and hope to see you guys there. Thanks for watching.